Hello, I'm JW. Now, it's been quite a while since we had a look at some old stuff, and what we've got here is a nice ancient piece of equipment. This is actually the back panel. See a nice sort of rust and corrosion on one end, so let's have a look around the front. So this is what we've got. Now, this is the front of the thing. A very substantial metal case. We've got some holes cut out the bottom where some wiring used to go. The bottom is what's rusty, obviously it was a damp environment. A couple of hinges on the side, and then the top again under the hole has been taken out, and there's a fair amount of rust up there as well. And what this is some kind of heating controller, and we've got two timers here at the top, one on each side, and then these switches in the centre, which is one in marked bedrooms, as in two words, and living rooms there. Here's a close look at the switches, and essentially we've got bedrooms and living rooms time switch, off at both sides and direct at the bottom, which presumably means just on. So you can turn the switch to the required selections. The knob is missing from here because it's basically the same as that side. And we've got a label here which says the Pentagon Group. And then further down, this equipment requires annual inspection. Probably hasn't been annually inspected for 40 years or something. So let's just see if we can get inside. Now it's got this sort of catch on this side which you essentially press in, and then it releases whatever the thing is inside. So certainly a substantially made piece, nothing in the lid particularly. And then in the middle here, all kinds of pieces of stuff. So we've got two timers at the top here, both the same. These are actually Vennerrette timers made by the Venner company. That's the same one that was owned by AMF at one time. So two of those, and they've actually got little manual setting things on the front as well. But you could actually use these as basically just standalone items. Some companies obviously made this up from a selection of off-the-shelf components. And we've got this switch at the top here, which is basically just on and off, presumably some sort of main isolator. And then we've got various fuses around the edges. These are ceramic and various ratings, so just take those out there. You see the fuse wire inside with the asbestos pad underneath. Another piece of asbestos in the bottom. Now these are actually made by MEM or MEN, which was Midlands Electrical Manufacturing, a company which no longer exists. It was bought out by Eaton some years ago. And similar things here with the lower ratings. These ones are yellow, and those are 20 amps. And then we've got the blue, which are 15. And one of the fuses is actually missing here, but of course it would have been a 15, same as the other side. And in the middle here, we see we've got a wire coming down. This is presumably the neutral connection, as it's insulated from the actual back plate there. And of course all these red ones would be the various lines that go to various places. Now let's have a look at some of the items in a bit more detail. Now this switch at the top is basically a brown type of thing, and you can see the name here not particularly clearly. It's actually ORDSAL or Ordsal, whoever they might be. And if we just have a look inside, it's presumably just going to be a double pole isolator. So just two screws there remove. And yep, sure enough, it's just basically line and neutral in at the top, and those out at the bottom. So that's your sort of main isolator there. Presumably the main incoming would be from the top here, and then obviously it comes out at the bottom into this switching arrangement inside. So it seems fairly straightforward. Not entirely clear who Ordsal are. That's certainly not a name we're particularly familiar with, but inside there we see it's rated 60 amps, 500 volts, and AC only, of course. Catalogue number apparently is DNG6. Is anything to anybody? And made in England at the bottom. And again, there's the logo on the front, that sort of Ordsal kind of writing there. And notice quite a lot of corrosion on these, which are obviously steel screws due to the damp environment. So we'll just put that back together. Now these timers are both identical, and these are actually Vennerrette brand. You can just about see it on the writing there, not particularly clear. And the covers of these normally just lift off. Plastic window here, plastic casing as well. And as we see inside, it's made by Venner. And essentially it's just a very simple mechanical timer. You've just got your on and off selections around the edge. And then you've got your manual selection here to just switch on and off. And the little plate here, they're rated for 30 amps, 200, 250 volts. And this is actually the Vennerrette Mark IIA T55, and again the motor is the same voltage as the switching contacts. And the one over here should be exactly the same. Yep, certainly. It's got slightly different switching pieces here, and again 30 amps again, 50 hertz, but it's a slightly different plate on that one for some reason. But again, it's substantially the same thing. I've got a label here with 669, which is probably the date, so that will be June 1969. And not entirely clear why these are two different items, but nevertheless, that's what we have. But essentially they're relatively straightforward. This piece just rotates with the correct time shown here. That'll be 3 o'clock on that one and 12 on that one, so clearly this is way out of order there. And as it rotates, it just switches on and off to the times you've set previously on the variable pieces here. These all seem to be clumped up in one little section on the side, whereas these are somewhat more spread out, as you would normally expect. Yes, it does turn as well, so again, it just sort of goes around and clicks on and off as it rotates. Now they've got sort of day and night sides on those. Now I'm not going to take these apart in this case because I've actually got another one of these in a separate unit, so I'll have a look at that in a separate video. Now in the middle here we've got these two switches, one for living rooms, one for bedrooms. Now I'm not entirely sure whether this was just for heating or not, because it seems odd we'd have 3 separate fuses for each side. So we've basically, for each of the rooms, we've got the 30 amp fuse, the 20 and also the 15. Although the 15 is missing there, it's the same as the one over this side. And all of the incoming here is all common together. I see the wires just all loop up and go inside this box in the centre, and then these will be your outgoings to whatever circuits you had. So it appears that this would actually switch all 3 of the circuits, and therefore presumably do a whole load of stuff within the same room, or in fact rooms. So let's see what we can find inside this one. Now this knob should unscrew here. Yes, it's a grub screw thing, but the half of the screws actually broke off, so I have to go at it with the pliers there. See, it's just half, it's sort of missing, and so the other knob was missing anyhow, so who knows where that ended up. And under here, well, that was certainly unrevealing. We've just got basically the remains of the 2 strips of glue that held this front plate on, metal plate, probably then just custom engraved on the front or printed for this particular application. So that really revealed nothing. So it looks like we're going to have to take off the screws that hold this in position. Right, well that's certainly loosened that, so let's see what we have inside. So these 2 switches here, these are actually made by Craig Derricott, so that's a fairly high cost and upmarket kind of brand there. Let's just have a closer look in there. So Craig Derricott, Sutton Coldfield, Warwickshire, England, and rated to 30 amps, which is not surprising considering the other things are rated that as well, at 440 volts, or 15 if you run them at 660. Now Craig and Derricott make generally high-end type switches, sort of thing that's designed to last forever, and of course the price generally reflects that. Now in terms of the wiring, bearing in mind the mains would have come in at the top here, and obviously the wires have been removed. The neutral just comes straight through and goes down to the block at the bottom, so it's insulated from the actual case there. And that will be the neutral connections for the circuits. There's a few remains connected on. This will be the earth block down here, so it's just actually fixed straight down into the metal frame of the device. And then the live or line comes out of here, and we've got 2, so one for each side, and that comes out and that actually goes across into the top of the fuse here, the 30 amp red variety. This side's actually the same. And then from the bottom of the fuse it's coming out of there, going into one side of the switch. It actually sort of curls around and comes back on itself and goes in here. Now both sides of course the same, so just have a look at the top one on this. So yeah, your power comes in here through the fuse and that goes into the terminal of the switch here. And we've got this other single wire here coming out, and that's actually going up into the timer, and that will be the permanent supply to drive the clock around there. And again, we've got a neutral wire coming out the back there, which should obviously go down to the bottom somewhere. Yeah, it actually comes across, and there's actually up behind the neutral on the connection here. So that's your sort of permanent supply for the clock there. And then the other side of the timer, we've got one coming out to the terminal over this side, and then the other one again comes out and it goes underneath to one of the other contacts. So difficult to see because this neutral's in the way, but basically one is connected here, and then the other one comes around to one of the other terminals on this side over here. So these presumably will just switch either between the timer, depending on what it said on the plate before. So we're going to have timer, which is obviously routed through the clock there, direct, which will just be on permanently, and then the other two positions are off. Now the outputs of these actually come off of this terminal here, and that's presumably that's why the timer will come across to that one. And we've got two wires there, both of the red again. And that comes down to the two fuses here, so one for the 20 amp and one for the 15. So it's basically two outgoing circuits for each of the room or rooms, a 15 and a 20. And again the same over this side, the 15 and the 20, and all the neutrals in the middle. So there'll be 4 neutrals and 4 lines going out, earths connecting at the bottom. Now initially I thought this would just be for heating, which may still be the case, although it's not entirely clear why you would have 2 circuits, and you've also divided them up in this rather strange fashion, so bedrooms and living rooms. So basically you've got a 20 and a 15 amp circuit for your either bedrooms, and 20 and a 15 for your living rooms. And the fact it's got plural of living rooms implies that this was not stuck in, say, a normal house, rather than somewhere which had more than one living room, so some sort of squalid squat of bedsits or something like that, as clearly in a normal house you're probably going to have, say, one living room. But yes, it's obviously been put together with a fair amount of expense and trouble. I mean, goodness knows what these switches would have cost at the time, but they certainly wouldn't have been the bargain off the shelf items. And again, all these fuse holders are really decent quality, and the time clocks and everything else. So somebody else went to a fair amount of trouble to make and assemble this thing, and whoever the Pentagon Group were presumably had something to do with that. So that's pretty much all we can say about that particular item. And so we'll have a look at the Vennerrette timer in a separate video, because I've actually got some of these which are separate rather than being built into an assembly like this. So until next time, thanks for watching.